Welcome to Healing Your Family Legacy, here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. Innovative, evidence-based recovery that helps to identify intergenerational trauma, allowing for freedom and embracement of the healing process. Today, episode 98, Loneliness and Isolation. And now your host, Dr. Donna Bevan-Lee.
This is Dr. Donna Bevan-Lee helping you heal your family legacy. So, last time I gave you all a challenge to listen more, talk less. And today, there is a segue into relationships and how you manage if you're a lonely and isolated person. Now, I have noticed that a lot of people don't realize that they're lonely and isolated because we have so many ways to distract ourselves from our emotional reality that sometimes we don't know that we're lonely and isolated. Not on a conscious level. Okay? So when you think about who's in my life? Do I actually speak with people? Or am I watching TV all the time and I think that those people are real? I know that, there are television shows where people actually talk about the television shows to each other. But it's not about that's all they have. The only thing they have is the TV show. Or sometimes, getting on social media, that you're on social media a lot, so you don't notice how lonely you are. Let me tell you this, if you're on social media more than, say, a half hour a day, you probably are lonely. Because if you've got people in your life, you don't really have a lot of time to be doing that. And if you are doing that, say, 3 or 4 hours a day, I call it the great, time vampire, time and energy vampire, that's sucking the life out of you that you don't get back. So, let me just tell you that social media, if you're on social media and you have, 100 followers or you have this many friends on your Facebook page or, whatever, that's not relationship. If you stop and get off of that platform, notice how you feel. It's highly addictive because there's something coming at you every minute. And your brain is saying, oh, this might be the one. Oh, this might be the excitement. Oh, this might be whatever. And it never does meet your expectation. How does that get addictive? The same way anything is addictive. You have an image about what's going to happen. It's like if I'm pulling the slot machine or if I'm drinking alcohol or somebody's offering me a drug. I'm not doing it. I'm not drinking it because it tastes great. I'm not pulling the slot machine because I have extra money to just give away to some strange person. I'm not taking that pill because I need it in order to, survive my life. It's about anticipation. I have an anticipatory piece of me that is, it's kind of like Christmas. Oh, and Christmas is coming up. It's like, oh, this year it's going to be the big one. It's going to be, I'm going to get what I want. I'm going to have all my wishes fulfilled. If only I believe, then I will have all my wishes fulfilled. And then, ask any therapist, what happens in January? Big letdown. Happens actually for a lot of people, by Christmas night, Christmas Day night. Because all those anticipations, all those expectations did not come true because it's a fairy tale. Okay. So that's what happens when on those social media platforms, is that this is the day. I would venture to guess that most of the platform, the groups or whatever on platforms really do things to try and get you hooked onto what they're saying, so that you're probably not even thinking for yourself. I've noticed this with, people that I've known who are rational thinkers, who have a moral compass, who have gotten on some platforms that are questionable at best. And now that's become their reality. Well, let me just suggest to you that if this is you, underneath it all, you might be feeling some feelings that don't feel very good. Now, I said this was going to be about loneliness and isolation, and that is one of the drivers of addiction. Okay, there's a lot of other things that goes along with it, but I would say trying to get out of those feelings, those really uncomfortable feelings, drive addiction more than anything else. Okay, if I'm comfortable with my feelings of loneliness, and I don't like those feelings, but I can feel comfortable with them, and I can still decide I don't like them all that much. It motivates me to reach out. It motivates me to say, gee, I guess I need to make some friends, or maybe I can get involved with volunteer things, or, it's like, what are the things where people really interact with one another face to face? Now, I noticed that this loneliness and isolation issue there is some discussion about it when people, I'm talking about people, I'm talking about, TV or whatever, where people get their information. They talk about loneliness and isolation among the elderly, and how there have been studies, research, longitudinal studies that show that elderly people who are lonely and isolated do not live as long as people who have socialization in their life. Now, some people can't get out and do things, okay? But there are always ways to interact with others, even if you are homebound or you can't reach out. There are telephones. Telephone's a really good way to talk to people, real people, about how you're doing and how you're feeling and what they're doing. Remember, we talked about that listening thing? How are you? What's going on in your life? How was your holiday? What are your plans? Do you have time to come and visit me? Now, we have, where I live, we have visiting nurses, we have visiting angels, we have all kinds of people who volunteer to go out and interact and socialize with the elderly. And so my point is that the elderly, there is discussion about this. There's research about it. There are resources that a person can reach out. What we don't hear a lot about are people who are not elderly. You don't hear about people saying, well, I'm just so lonely and isolated and la, 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 unless they're aware. But I would say that most of the people on social media platforms, especially if they're on it for more than, say, a half hour a day, are lonely. That's why they're reaching out to perfect strangers and and having real feelings about having these people be their friends. These are people you don't know, and they don't care about you. Relationships take time, attention, and energy. So, I have friends in my life. I have friends that I hike with. I have friends that, we might get together to have dinner once in a while. I have friends that, might come over to the house, or we go to their house to watch sporting events or movies. It's a rare occasion that, I feel lonely. All right. I'm just talking about myself, obviously. And there is a difference between being alone and feeling lonely and isolated. I value my time that I spend alone. And, now that I don't live around my family, and I don't go into my office every day and work, it's like I had to go through a period of time where I had to adjust to having that much time alone and not feeling lonely. But I was aware. It's like, okay, well, my life has changed and I spend more time alone. And sometimes when I would get lonely, I would think, wow, I don't particularly care for that feeling, but I think it's just what it is today. It's not going to be here all the time. And then I would start to think of, okay, who around me, who do I know? Are there any resources or organizations like, even a meetup? It's like if you go on Meetup, that's a good, it's like not, I don't know if they'd call that a platform or not, but meetups are good ways to meet other people who enjoy doing the same kinds of things that you do. So there might be a meetup for, say, women who hike, a meetup for, people who enjoy movies, meetup for cooking classes, all right? And you go online and you go to Meetup and you see all kinds of things that people are meeting up so that they can do it with other people. Being around other people, talking to real people on the phone or in person, that's when, it's like most of the time you don't feel lonely then. Now, I can't, I've heard many platitudes and sayings over the years where people talk about this experience of loneliness. And one of the ones that I'm sure you've heard, but I'm going to say it anyway, is that I can feel lonely in a crowd of people. And sometimes, for me anyway, when I'm in a crowd of people, that's when I feel really lonely. Because if I don't have a crowd of friends, okay, I have a few good friends. And, given that I only work part-time because I'm semi-retired, you'd think, oh, well, if you have extra time, you must be able to get extra people in your life. No, having a true friendship requires time, attention, and energy given. So even if I have more time, attention, and energy, I might just say, well, I want to give more time, attention, and energy to the friendships and relationships that I already have. Because when I was working full time and writing my book, Iron Legacy, and raising children, I didn't really have a lot of time to put into some of those friendships and relationships. So now I do. And I am able to put more time and energy into those friendships and relationships. But I'm telling you that if you have 1 or 2 or 3 friends that you get together with, that you talk to on the phone, you're rich. You're probably not lonely. Because if you've nurtured those relationships, you know that it's all you have to do is call them on the phone or visit them, and it falls into place. You might have a friend that you had from high school or college or whatever, and this is another thing that people have said to me. Well, I have this one friend I visit, 2 times a year. They live in another state. But when we get together, it's like we never stopped seeing each other every day. And that's a true friend. And it happens to everyone that has a true friend. It's just like nothing happened. No time lapsed between us. But when we get together, we have all kinds of conversations. Okay? It feels like you've been filled up, nurtured, and you really don't want to leave sometimes. You really don't want them to go sometimes, because that's where your fulfillment comes from. But loneliness and isolation are killers. They are drivers of addiction. It's like people who are predatory. They've learned to see the lonely and isolated person, and predators will go after that person. Sometimes they'll go after them to try and manipulate them out of their money, or manipulate them into situations that they want them to be in. Now, it's hard. That's not hard. It takes time and attention and energy to recognize loneliness. Okay? I think it's an epidemic in our culture, because we can turn on a TV, turn on our computer, go to websites, shop at home. So I don't even have to go outside and interact with people in the world. I can live a life where I never have to walk outside again. Here's the deal, though. If anything ever happens that creates a situation where we don't have that immediate hit, and I call it a hit because that's what it is, what are you going to do then? Are you going to be able to reach out and talk to real people? Or are you going to sit and just feel lonely, lonely, lonely and not know what to do? Because it's a skill. And sometimes kids don't get an opportunity to have that skill. Some people, grew up in the military, or their parents were in the military, or their parents were in clergy, or, like me, I had a dad who fancied himself a rodeo cowboy, so we didn't stick around very long in different places until I was 12, and by then, a lot of skills that kids, get to learn have already passed me by, and now I'm like jumping into junior high without having any skills on how to develop friendships. I've learned how to do it, but it's not something that comes automatically. It's like I've mentioned that before. Whenever you deal with childhood trauma and you change the course of your life because you deal with the childhood trauma, the trauma isn't running your life anymore. The thing you have to remember is that you have to keep doing what you did to make that change. It's really not going to be second nature to you. Okay? So that means that you have to continue to reach out. You have to continue to ask for interaction and to put yourself out there. I know I do. I have to. I chose a profession where, at the end of the day, even though I felt fulfilled and I felt joy, because I really cared about all those people. They went home to their own lives. They weren't like in my house. And so any idea that somehow I had a full social life because I saw people and talked to them and listened to them all day long, that was my job. And they went home and had their own lives. I wasn't in it. And so, I learned how to do some kind of social interacting, of course. But, being a retired person meant that, I have to change some things around that and recognize that lonely feeling is not just being alone. And being alone doesn't mean you're just lonely. The isolation part comes where I feel lonely and I don't reach out. And when I don't reach out, I feel more lonely and I'm more inclined to do things that will not be good for me. Now, being a recovering person, I don't do that because I've spent a lot of years learning how to reach out and how to know if a person, I have people in my life that, I only see once in a while, people in my life that I would enjoy seeing more, but they're people in my life. And learning how to accept no as a complete sentence was important because, I might say, hey, you want to go on a hike? That happens a lot. And they might say, no, I'm not available that day. I have to learn how to accept no. And I might feel disappointed. That's okay. And it's probably, if I have a friend I want to hang out with and do something with and they say no, I hope I feel a little bit of disappointment. It's like, what kind of friend would I be? What kind of real energy would I have if I just said, okay, whatever? Then that's not a relationship that I'm invested in. Okay. I've had friends, I have friends that were going to come and visit in the next few weeks, for instance. And they called and said they couldn't come because of some health issues that had come up. And I said, oh, that's so disappointing. I'm really disappointed because I was really looking forward to that. And I noticed that they're like, oh, well, we didn't really mean to this. I said, look, stop. Okay. I want you to hear that I was disappointed. And just think about this. How would you feel if I wasn't disappointed? If I said, oh, well, whatever, would that be better? And I was like, oh, listen, I said I was disappointed. Okay, I am listening to that and I go, gee, I'm really glad you're disappointed about that because otherwise, I guess my friendship doesn't mean anything to you. It doesn't mean I'm going to go out and, hurt myself or do anything like that. Doesn't mean that I'm going to give up my sobriety and go get drunk. No, I am going to, I've got other things going to plan to do. Or maybe I won't. Okay. So here's the thing about loneliness. Feel it. Recognize it for what it is. Think of it more as an alarm clock going off in your head that says you need to reach out. You need to pick up the phone and say, hey, you want to do this or that? Or, I think texting is a good way to interact too, especially with people who have busy lives because they might not be able to pick up the phone and you might be in your busy life too and you might forget to call them later. Or you might leave a voicemail and they haven't picked up their voicemail, but I can tell you this, most of the time people pick up text, short and sweet. It's like, hey, you want to go on a hike today? Can't do it today. Okay. Okay. I've acknowledged that. And now I'm thinking about what else. But I'll tell you what will not work in the long run, and it isn't working now, is that, when I look at the amount of alcoholism, drug addiction, and suicide, I would say that most people, not most, many of us in our culture have tried to fix our loneliness so that we won't go into isolation, because that feels really, 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 really bad. But so we try and fix our loneliness with social platforms, alcohol, drugs, sex, and guess what? It doesn't work. So think about this. If you don't feel lonely once in a while, you're probably in some kind of an addictive process. And you can feel lonely in a crowd, and you can feel lonely in your own home with other people around. Listen to that and say, I guess I need to reach out. It's not going to kill me to feel lonely, even if it's for a day or a week. I can feel lonely for that much time or longer, but it's also an alarm that says, reach out. And that's what I would suggest. Reach out. Feel that loneliness so that it doesn't develop into isolation. Reach out. People are out there. Meetups, old friends. I've met people on the trail. Go out to shop. You meet people there. Get involved with organizations. Volunteer. There's plenty of ways to reach out. Do it. See you next time.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Healing Your Family Legacy here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. This channel is made possible because of listeners just like you. If you would like to support the channel with your tax-deductible contribution on an ongoing basis or through a one-time gift, head over to experienceofthesoul.com/support. Healing Your Family Legacy is copyright 2022, Dr. Donna Bevan-Lee, all rights reserved. Our theme music is composed by Dave Croft and used with permission. The Experience of the Soul podcast channel is a production of 818 Studios.
Hey friends, Sean here, your Experience of the Soul producer. I want to take a moment to tell you about something truly exciting. The Soulworks online community, created by your host, Cynthia Alice Anderson, and available on the Mighty Networks app. If you're looking for a place where you can explore your spiritual path, connect with others, and grow in a meaningful way, then this is for you. Soulworks is so much more than an online community. It's a safe, inclusive space for spiritual exploration, self-discovery, and personal transformation. Inside the community, you'll find everything from uplifting spiritual studies to soul-centered growth practices, meditations, affirmations, and so much more. It's a space where you'll always be supported and never judged. The best part, membership is free. You'll have access to powerful resources, inspiring content, and a supportive group of like-minded people who are all on their own unique spiritual journeys. And if you're ready to dive deeper, there are premium options available to enhance your experience with a live Monday night talk series and extended, deeper meditations. If you're seeking a place to connect, grow, and nurture your soul, we would love to have you join us in the Soulworks community and see where this journey can take you. Visit my.soulworkscommunity.com today.